Hi, Shane here. You're watching Sam for God, and this is Mark. Check her out.
So hi guys, how are you doing? Today is the 1st of June 2020, and in the month of May I read 12 books. A bit less than I did in April, but still quite a lot of books. I'm actually very happy with the amount that I read. Not that it should be about how many books you read or anything, but for me personally, because I had a lot of books that I'd been meaning to read for a long time, a lot of them had been on my shelves for like years, I'm glad that I finally managed to get to reading quite a lot of them. So this is my May wrap up. I've got all the books here with me, so I can just show them to you. It's a big pile of them, Lord have mercy. And there were some really good ones in here, so yeah, I'm going to talk about all the books one by one. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. It's probably going to be quite a long video, so maybe get yourself, I don't know, a croissant if you're lucky enough to have one, but I think a tea or a coffee should do. Anyway, I started off the month of May with Queenie, which is a book that I've been meaning to read since it came out. Like, it was everywhere when it first came out. I heard really good things about it from a lot of people, but I didn't want to buy it when it was in hardcover. In fact, I'm pretty sure I actually did buy it, and then I just decided I didn't want it, so I gave it to a friend when it was hardcover basically. But recently it came out on paperback, which is my preference when it comes to books, so I got it and I finally read it, and I didn't love it. I'm not gonna lie, it was really easy to read, as in, like, even though it's quite long, I read it within about 2 or 3 days. The characters were really good. Like, I really did care about Queenie and her friends, and I wanted her to do well, even though I've heard that a lot of people find Queenie a bit annoying because she makes a lot of mistakes, especially in the first half of the book. She does a lot of questionable things that you're like, well, you're bringing this upon yourself. But I don't think it's about that. Like, I think the book, I'm happy that it exists because it does touch on quite a lot of subjects, important subjects, especially race in this day and time. That's really important. So I'm very, like, I'm happy that this exists, but I think it didn't really do much for me personally. I have read a lot of books on race. I have read a lot of books by black authors, like fiction, non-fiction, so like I've read enough to then be able to then compare this to the other books I've read, and I just don't think this was as good as other books that I've read by black people about being black. So I personally didn't love it. I think the writing was just a bit annoying. I mean, I can't explain to you the amount of times that she uses the words "she kissed her teeth" in this book. Like, honestly, like every other page there's somebody kissing their teeth apparently. And I know that that's an expression, but like when you continuously read the same thing, kissing your teeth or kissing her teeth or kissing his teeth or whatever, it gets annoying. I don't think that's really good writing in my opinion. And to me, it just, even though, like I said, it's sad, the subject matter is sad, and it's quite eye-opening for people who maybe don't know much about black culture or what it's like. And even for me, even though I've read a lot of books before about black culture and what it's like for them, I still learned a few new things. Like, it was good. I'm happy that I read it. But like I said, didn't really like the writing, found it quite annoying, didn't really like the story much either. It just, I don't know, I feel like it could have been done better. It's not something new to me, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book on my list is a book called Slip of a Fish by Amy Arnold. Now, I didn't really know much about this book at all. I think I just found it on Amazon a few months ago and it just looked good. Like, as in, like, I read a couple of reviews about it and people were saying good things about it. I don't normally like read too much of the description of books because I like to go into them more or less fully blind, and so I was really surprised by this book, like very surprised. It's really hard to explain what this is about, but it's about a couple, and the woman has some problems, and you can kind of tell as the story goes on because it's told by her perspective, so it's first person narrative, and it's in a stream of consciousness style of writing. So if you like people like Ali Smith, which I personally adore, you will like this because it's the same kind of vibe in terms of the style of the writing. I really went on an adventure with the protagonist in this, and I think that's why I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I didn't think I was going to love the book as much as I did. Like, in the beginning, for the first, I don't know, half an hour for the first like half of the book, I was just like, oh, it's probably a 4 out of 5, like it's good, but I don't know, I don't care too much about it. But the writing in it for me was so beautiful. Like, Amy plays with words so much. There are so many beautiful passages in the book, which is very similar again to what Ali Smith does, and it's one of those things where if you like that kind of stuff, you'll like it, and if you don't, you won't. But I really liked it. It's definitely not a book for everyone. I wouldn't just go around and recommending this book to every single person, but I loved it and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So yeah. Next is Dominicana by Angie Cruz. So this is actually in the shortlist for the Women's Prize for Fiction Awards, so I was very intrigued to read this. Obviously it's only recently come out, that's why it's in a hardback rather than paperback, and I really liked it. This was also a pretty fast read for me. Like, I read it in about 2 days. I didn't think the writing style was too special or anything, but it was nice. Like, nothing about the writing annoyed me particularly. The characters were good, they weren't too like well developed or anything, but it was like a nice story. For me, I'd never really read anything about this period in history in the Dominican Republic and their struggles and what it's like for them, so it was just very interesting for me to read about this. And the writing, like I said, was good. Nothing special, but it was good, and the characters were good, and it's about someone who immigrates. And I think, as I am someone who has in some ways immigrated, I related a lot to the protagonist again in this story. Do I think it should win the Women's Prize Fiction Award? No, absolutely not, but it's a good contender, and I'm glad this book exists, and I would recommend it because I think it's quite an easy read. And also, even though it obviously deals with a lot of hard topics, it's interesting because a lot of people probably wouldn't have read about that period in history. Now, the next book I have here is a book that is like very big right now because they've made a TV show out of it, and the book came out a while ago, a few years ago, but I hadn't read it yet. And it's Sally Rooney's Normal People. Now, I read Sally Rooney's first novel, Conversations with Friends, a couple of years ago, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it. Like, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. But I remember liking her like writing a lot. I didn't like the story in Conversation with Friends, and like what it was about, the characters I didn't really connect with, but I liked the way she wrote. So I really was excited to give this a go because I'd heard that a lot of people actually prefer this to Conversation with Friends. So I gave it a go, and I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So I'm one of those people that genuinely thinks this novel does deserve the hype, and I watched the TV show literally like as soon as I finished this. I spent about 2 days just binge watching the TV show, and I think I actually prefer the TV show to the book, which doesn't happen often. Normally I'm very much like the book is better than the film or the TV show, but they've done such a great job with the program. So if you don't really want to read the book, or if you're just not a reader, I mean, I guess if you're not a reader you probably wouldn't be watching this right now, but if you don't have access to the book right now but you want to find out what this novel is about, I would highly recommend you watching the program because it's so well done. It's one of the most beautiful things I've watched in recent years. It's a very, very, very good adaptation of this book, probably better. Like I said, I think it actually works better on screen. So yeah, that is the next novel. The next one here, we have another one of my favorites from this month, and it's The Vegetarian by Han Kang. Now, this book I first saw because one of my friends, a few years ago, I saw her reading this when I was working with her. Like at work, she had it with her, and that's kind of how I became aware of it. And it's a pretty short book, like it's not too long. But I was very intrigued back from like when I first heard about it, and I remember buying it a few years ago, but I obviously only read it now, in May of 2020. Now, this book is a kind of book that, like, if you don't know much about it, which I didn't, like for me just the title really intrigued me, but I don't think you should let the title put you off if you are somebody who perhaps doesn't like the idea of being a vegetarian, or if you are a vegetarian and you just think this might be like a stupid thing about vegetarianism or something. It's really not about vegetarianism at all. There is a vegetarian person in this book, of course, but it's more about everyone around this person's reactions to this person becoming vegetarian, and it becomes incredibly weird and dark and uncomfortable at times, like genuinely unsettling. Like, I didn't have a great time reading this book, I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't like a, oh wow, this is so heartwarming, this is beautiful. No, but it is so interesting because it made me think a lot. It's about relationships, it's about how people perceive you, it's about what one particular thing, one small thing can affect so many other things. I liked how weird it was. I loved the ending, and it's basically told in the perspective of 3 different people, and I really love that as well because it's not confusing at all. It's like it stops at the exact moment that you kind of feel like you're kind of done with a character. It moves on to the next character, which I thought was phenomenal. There were some very unlikable characters in here, but that doesn't matter because that's the point, you know. None of the characters felt like a villain. You kind of understood every character, but you also hated some of it. Like, it's just so good. This book is like a book that I would definitely reread in future years. The next book is a book that I had on my shelves for a long time ago, and it's called Stay With Me by Ayobami Adebayo, and this is what it looks like. It's a beautiful cover. This is about the story of 2 people in Nigeria who have just kind of got married, and it's about the beginning of their lives and their struggles and kind of what happens after that. I don't want to give too much away, but this again for me was a 5 out of 5 star read. It was beautiful. The writing in this is beautiful. The characters are so well developed. It really made me like feel so much, and the main character, the girl, she was so real. She felt so real as I was reading this that I just connected to how I felt for her. I don't think I've ever read about someone who just felt so real, and her struggles and everything just felt so real. And I'm somebody who obviously hasn't married. I don't have any kids or anything, so So a lot of her struggles were things that I wasn't like familiar with, I've not experienced myself, but I just understood them. Like, I really felt for her. And I think that, like, again, this is set in Nigeria, so it's like about black people. It's written by a black author, so if you want to support black female authors especially, this would be a good book to pick up. Next we have a graphic novel. If you didn't watch my April 2020 book wrap up, I'll leave it down below, because I read some really good stuff then as well. But I've kind of made it my mission to try and read one graphic novel a month, because I really like them. Like, I read my first one in ages last month, and I realized how much I enjoy them. And this month I read Speak by Laurie House Anderson and artwork by Emily Carroll. This is what it looks like. It's quite a hefty book, like big book, thick book. I think it's got about 500 pages maybe, or close to it. Yeah, 400 something pages. And I really liked it. I actually gave this book 5 out of 5 stars again. So many 5-star books this month, and it's my first time giving a graphic novel 5 stars. But this is about a girl here, you can see her here, and she's in high school, and it's about her life in high school and how she doesn't really fit in, and she's trying to figure out what to do. And it's a kind of story that has been told many times before. Like, don't get me wrong, this isn't anything new or groundbreaking, but I personally really enjoyed reading it through this medium in a graphic novel way. I thought it was like very well done. The artwork was beautiful. I connected with the character. I really felt for her, and I loved her journey. Like, even though I've read stories like this many times before, to me it was still like, it still affected me enough for me to want to give it 5 stars, which I think is saying something, you know, considering it's in a graphic novel. So I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I loved the artwork in it. It's phenomenal. So well done to Emily Carroll for the artwork. You can see it's so great, and I'm so excited to read more graphic novels this month. The next book, Lord Have All the Mercy. Whew. Another 5-star. And it's of course Ali Smith's Spring. Now, this book came out last spring, and again I did get the book hardcover when it first came out, because I was excited, and I think it's actually signed my cover of it, because I was like, I pre-ordered it or something. I always like pre-order Ali Smith's books, but it came, and like, last year I was in a very weird frame of mind, so I didn't really do too much reading. I probably only read about 3 or 4 books throughout the whole year of 2019. So I remember like starting to read this spring last year, and I just never really got into it. I just wasn't in the right frame of mind to read it, basically. So I put it away. I actually got a copy of it for my friend as well, because she's a big Ali Smith fan, and she read it and she was excited about it, but I hadn't read it yet, and I was like, I don't know, like, I've got the copy but I've not even read it yet. So yeah, recently I decided to get myself a new copy, start afresh, and I got it in paperback, which is what most of my Ali Smith books are. And I read it, and it just made me so happy. I hadn't read an Ali Smith book in a while, in a couple of years really. So kind of going back to her beautiful writing style, which is a stream of consciousness style of writing again, which wouldn't be to everyone's taste, but I love it. It just was so wonderful. And I think so far, so this is a part of a quartet of books that are coming out or have come out. The only one that hasn't come out from this series is Summer, which is hopefully coming out later this year, I think in August, which is going to be the last of the installments. But for me, I think out of this, Winter and Autumn, this might actually be my favorite. Like, I really loved Autumn. Winter was good as well, but I think this was just something else. So I don't know, I'm gonna have to reread Autumn at some point, because Autumn I remember really loving as well. So anyway, basically what I'm trying to say is that this is beautiful. It's very hard for me to explain what this is about, because it's about so many things. The only thing I can say is that Ali Smith's writing is just so powerful and beautiful and so readable. There's a lot of art and culture included in it, and it's about like the world that we're living in right now, so a lot of social commentary as well, which I thought was beautiful. I underlined so many things in this book, which is what I always do when I read any Ali Smith novel, so I recommend this so much. I don't think you need to start with Autumn necessarily. If you don't want to, you can probably start with this and kind of make your way through the rest of her quarterly novels. But whatever you do, make sure you read at least one Ali Smith novel in your life to make up your mind about her. You might not like her, she might not be to your taste, but at least you would have given her a chance. Next we have another 5-star book for me. This month was great for like really good reads for me, and this is Little Eyes. Oh, there's a bit of dust on here. Little Eyes by Samantha Schweblin. And I saw this on Amazon. I'm not gonna lie, I only bought this about a month ago. I was scrolling through Amazon, and this just kept popping up. I think it's quite a new release, obviously, because it's also only available in hard copy at the moment. Whoa, the lighting has changed. Sorry guys, I am using natural lighting, so if the lighting does change, I apologize. Yeah, so yeah, I saw this, I kept seeing this book and I was very fascinated by it just because of the cover. I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but everyone does it. Like, I definitely do it. And so it just really intrigued me. I didn't really read the synopsis or anything. I just was like, I've been looking at it for too long. I was like, it's time now, I want this. So I bought it, it came, I read it, and Lord have mercy, what a story. The concept of this book is insane. So without giving too much away, because I think it's really, really cool for you if you get this to like get involved in it kind of afresh. It's about technology, and like, we live in a modern world where technology is constantly improving, and in this world there are these like little plushy robot things that you can buy and then you can have them as your pet, I guess, in your house, but somebody is watching you from that device. So your pet is alive because there is somebody in there who can see everything through a camera in their house through that device. And you can basically decide what you want to buy. You can either be the person watching things, or you can be the person having a pet, or you can have both. It's so fascinating. I don't think this book was particularly like well written or anything like special about the writing style. I loved the writing style, don't get me wrong, it was like really good. I didn't find it annoying. I thought it was very easy to read. I enjoyed it a lot whilst I was reading it, like but it wasn't like the writing and the prose wasn't what really made me love it. And also this is translated as far as I'm aware, so yes, this is translated by Megan McDowell, and obviously the original author is Samantha Schweblin, who I believe is either German. Let me just find this out. She's originally from Buenos Aires, so yeah, and she lives in Berlin, Germany. So yeah, it's again a good thing to read an author who isn't from England or America, which tends to be the case with most authors, unfortunately. So yeah, the concept of this book was what really kind of made me love it, because it just made me feel so uncomfortable and so scared and weird, and it made me think a lot as well. And I feel like it's a very realistic concept in a very strange way. So it's the book that I'm going to recommend to everyone. I think it's something that we all will connect with, because you know, we all live in the world of modern technology. So yeah, I love this a lot. 5 out of 5. Now 3 books left, and the next one is The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. This is what this book looks like. Look how beautiful the cover is, like beautiful. I've had this book on my shelves for ages because one of my friends read this a few years ago and really loved it. So again, since then I've kind of been wanting to read it, but I just hadn't got round to it yet. It's quite a big book. I think it's like 450 pages or something like that, and it's a historical novel in the Victorian era, and the writing can be a bit complicated at times, so it's not a book for everyone. I don't want to like just go and recommend this to everyone without kind of giving a bit of information about it first, just in case. For me, it took me a while to get into it, I'm not gonna lie. But once I got into it and I really understood the characters and I got to know them very well, because there are quite a lot of characters in this book as well, as normally seems to be the case with any historical fiction. But yeah, I adored it. So I thought the writing in this was beautiful. Again, there were so many sentences in it that I was underlining. There were so many moments where I had to be like, oh, I just need some time to think about what's happened. The descriptions in it were beautiful. It's obviously set in Essex. It's about the Essex Serpent, like a mythical kind of creature that people in Essex believe to be there, like a scary thing. But the characters for me were what really made it. I didn't really care too much about the actual creature. I cared about the relationships between the characters. It's about friendship, like really a lot about friendship and relationships as well. And I just loved it. There's a lot of like kind of pages in it that are kind of told through letters between the characters that I loved. I feel like whilst I was reading this book, and this book took me about a week to read, like it wasn't a quick and easy book, but whilst I was reading it, I felt like I was very much transported into a different time, like a different era, the Victorian times, and I didn't want it to end, and it did end eventually. But yeah, I loved it. Again, it's not a book for everyone, but I certainly enjoyed it and I would recommend it. The next book Edna O'Brien's Girl, which actually was recently nominated for the Women's Prize for Fiction Award as well. I believe it made the long list, but not the short list, which I agree with. I don't even know how it made the long list, to be honest. Now this book I had so much hope for, and it really let me down, and I'm gutted. Like I really am, because I thought I was gonna love it. I really did. Not only because the cover looks great, but also because of the premise of it. The story is about a girl who was captured, abducted, and married into Boko Haram The narrator of the story witnesses and suffers the horrors of a community of men governed by a brutal code of violence. So it's about a time, again, in history that I didn't really know much about, so I was intrigued about it. I was excited to learn more about it. I love the fact that the book is called Girl. I thought that was very powerful, but Lord have mercy, I did not like this book. I was so disappointed by it. I think my main issue is that I just could not connect with the characters or the story for that matter at all. And believe me, I tried. This is like it's not a very long book, so it was pretty easy to read, but the amount of times I would like read a couple of pages and just like put it down because I just did not care, that's really bad. That shows bad writing in my opinion. And I think part of it is the fact that Edna O'Brien is an Irish author. I think she's like quite an old woman. I think she might be in her 80s or something. And the story is of a black girl from a time period that Edna probably wouldn't know anything about. And I appreciate the fact that she did obviously go and research and do her research about this book before she wrote it. I'm pretty sure she actually went to the country and spoke to a lot of people and tried to basically do as much research as she could. That's very admirable, but there's something about it that still feels a bit weird and strange to me for a white woman from Ireland to write such an important story about a black girl who had to deal with the horrors of Boko Haram. Like, I just don't like it, and I think it could have worked maybe, but I think this is proof that it doesn't work. Like, you can try and research as much as you want about a topic that you don't know anything about, but if it's something that has to do about race as well and about history, and you just haven't lived it, and you just don't have any ties to it, like, I just don't think you should be writing about it. Genuinely speaking, I just think that's a main problem in this. And like I said, I didn't like go into this wanting to not like it. I wanted to love it, but it didn't work for me. And on top of this, the writing style as well. This is my first time reading anything by Edna O'Brien, but like, it was nothing special in my opinion. A lot of people love her writing. For me, it did nothing. The sentences are very, very short, very, very simple, and don't get me wrong, at least this wasn't annoying. Like Queenie I found quite annoying because a lot of repetition was happening in it, but this, it's just so simple. I just can't. In fact, I think this is a book that I'm actually going to give away to like a friend, or I don't know, I might sell it or give it or just donate it to someone, because I don't see myself ever returning back to this book. I don't need this book. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars just because I learned a bit about that time in history again, so that was good. At least I got something out of it, but Lord have mercy, I didn't like it. I did not enjoy it. So sorry, I know a lot of people do love this book, but it was not for me. And the last one, we're going to end it on a good note, is Strange Weather in Tokyo by Hiromi Kawakami. It's quite a short novella, I would say, about 200 and something pages. I think it's just about 200 pages. And I read this because I was meant to be in Tokyo right now. In fact, today on the 1st of June, I was meant to be in Tokyo Disneyland with my friend. We were meant to be staying there for like 4 days in a Disney hotel, like exploring Tokyo Disney, and then continue on to like Kyoto and other parts of Japan. And like, Lord have mercy, obviously none of these things happened because of this whole pandemic. But I thought, just because I can't be in Tokyo physically right now, it doesn't mean that I shouldn't still enjoy a bit of Japan. So I purchased this book. I found it on Amazon, and it had a lot of good reviews, so I was very intrigued, and I'm really glad I did, because it's a beautifully written book. Now obviously, again, this is a translated book, so the original author would have written it in Japanese and it's been translated, but I really did enjoy the translation. I thought they did a really great job. Let me find out who the translator was actually, because I feel like they deserve credit. Okay, translated from the Japanese by Alison Markin Powell, so well done to her. Now, so you can see, I always write in my books like my thoughts on it. You can see I've written a lot on this. I only finished this last night, so it's my last book of May, but I gave this 4 out of 5 stars because basically it's a romance, it's a love story between 2 people in Tokyo, and whilst I loved reading about them and I thought it was done so beautifully, I felt really lonely reading this book. And I don't know if it's because obviously I know that I should be in Japan right now and I'm not, and I was just kind of sad kind of reading so much about Japan whilst I'm not there and I could have been there. But it also, I think, just reminded me that it kind of made me feel lonely as well, because this book is also mainly about loneliness. Like, whilst it is about a couple kind of coming together, it's also about loneliness. There are some beautiful passages and words about loneliness in this, and it really kind of made me feel it. And so in that way, I think the author has done a fantastic job to make you kind of feel the loneliness that the main character feels in this. This is, again, told in like the first person narrative, and yeah, it just made me lonely, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, but it's also very, very beautiful, especially if you love Japan, which I do. There are so many little references to like Japanese things and like food and streets of Tokyo that again one day hopefully I'll get to see. So I would recommend it. I will definitely read it again. I think I might take it with me to Japan when I hopefully get to go next year or something, and then read it then. But yeah, at the moment it just made me feel sad whilst I was reading it. So yeah, there you go. These are my books of May 2020. I've been talking for a long time. This video is very long, but I hope you've enjoyed them. Leave comments down below, let me know if any of the books that I showed you interest you, or if you've read any of them. Feel free to follow me on Goodreads. I do have a Goodreads account, which I always leave in my links down below. So yeah, go and do that. Let me know of any good books that you've read, because I'm always looking for new books to read. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.